Over 40 full playthroughs. That is how many times director of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, Naoki Hamaguchi, has already completed the game. We're going to talk about that and a lot more in today's video with this brand new interview with the game's director. So if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button, and if you're new here and you'd like to stick around, you can subscribe. All of that helps out the channel a ton. So let's talk about it. So today's interview comes to us from Ollie Reynolds of Nintendo Life. As always, I'll leave a link in the description down below to the entire interview because we won't be covering the entire thing here in the video. So if you'd like to read it for yourself, that'll be in the description. And we start off first with a question that I will summarize, but essentially they ask Hamaguchi, how different was it developing and porting Remake compared to Rebirth? And Hamaguchi would go on to say that they couldn't use the same techniques that they did with Remake in Rebirth. Remake being the much smaller game, it's in a confined area of Midgar. They could change little things here and there like the fog effects, lighting, post effects. Nothing too crazy. But then you get on to Rebirth, and that is an open zone game. The lighting is completely different. The level of detail, the enemies, the towns, all of that has been expanded greatly. So they had to change their approach basically from the ground up. And what's really cool is that he said they didn't make adjustments to the polygon counts themselves, which is really smart. Instead, they just re-examined things like level of detail, some of the texture work, figuring out what heavy rendering loads could be changed. And having seen a lot of footage now of Rebirth running on Switch 2, it's incredibly impressive. It's not going to replace the PS5 version for sure, but it gets pretty close. And the fact that you can get a PlayStation 5 level game running on a Switch 2 hardware, whether it's in docked mode or handheld, and it looks as good as it's performing is pretty insane. And the fact that he pointed out that they didn't change any polygon counts is apparent when you check out the Switch 2 version of the game. Because obviously there are changes with the environment, some objects and things are removed to kind of ease the load, I think, of the game. A good example is in Tifa's room in Nibelheim. Some of the posters and decorations in her room are gone, and I would assume that's just because it was heavier on the processing load. Certain environmental areas also don't look great, textures are low, but some of these areas are spots in even the PS5 version where it just didn't look very good. That's just kind of how these kind of games work with the type of engine that they're running on. But looking at the characters, looking at the enemies, especially the boss encounters, they didn't really seem to make any sacrifices there. There are some weird things going on with the hair, and a lot of that has to do with the DLSS rendering stuff, but even then Hamaguchi says they didn't go in and completely change those things. They would add certain blur effects here and there to kind of compensate some of that aliasing that you would see on the hair. But for the most part, those cutscenes, uncompromised. Gameplay, also uncompromised. And that seems to be the whole goal with porting this trilogy over to something like a Switch 2, is to ensure that the quality is still there, and playing that version isn't like the last resort. Just because you're playing it on a Switch 2, that doesn't mean that it's the crappiest version. It's gonna stand side by side with what you would get on PS5 and Xbox and PC, and again, it's an incredible port. People called Remake a miracle port. I think this game is more of a miracle port than anything. Up next, they ask Hamaguchi, how come Rebirth is releasing so soon after Remake? It's a pretty short gap between these releases. Why is that? And I'll paraphrase here, but Hamaguchi essentially says that they don't want people to have a fragmented experience, right? For a lot of us who have been with the Remake trilogy since the PlayStation 4, it's been a long time. It doesn't always feel that way. It kind of moves quickly. But for the people who are just now trying the game out on a Switch 2, on an Xbox, they had the experience of Remake in January. There probably still is interest there, and then boom, you hit them with Rebirth, which is coming out very shortly after. So it's a great way to keep people engaged and interested in what they're doing, but it also lines up with Part 3, because that'll probably be coming out early next year as well. So you release your games, you keep them out there in the public eye, and hopefully people will get invested, and as hype builds towards the release of Rebirth on multi-platform, hopefully it will then translate over to whatever happens with Part 3 as well. And that's the crazy thing, is for us, again, it's been a long journey. It doesn't always feel that way, but even though we've had to wait in between these games, which kind of sucks, It's also been a really cool opportunity for the community to really just talk about what happens in each of these games. It felt like yesterday we had all finished Rebirth and we were contemplating like, what's going on? That ending was crazy. Where are they going to go with the next game? So it leads to a lot of topics of conversations about the story, the characters, combat, a lot of theorizing, theory crafting videos. And what's absolutely insane is that we have spent so much time wondering what Part 3 is going to be like. Even when Remake came out, a lot of us were like, dude, I wonder how they're going to do the later sections of this game. It's crazy to think that we've spent so much time just imagining what it could be like. And potentially, very shortly, we're going to see what it's actually going to be. It still doesn't feel real to think about that. Like all the stuff we've thought about, like changes to combat and story, the weapons, that's going to be revealed very shortly, I would assume. Up next, they ask Hamaguchi about progress on Part 3. Hamaguchi goes on to say, "We're very excited about how the game is currently progressing. I have already completed over 40 full playthroughs. I can't wait for as many people as possible to experience the game for themselves, and myself and the team are working hard to ensure we can create an unforgettable gameplay experience." That is some extreme dedication right there. Obviously, you have a lot of people that are playtesting on these games too. Pretty decent sized playtesting teams, I would assume, QA teams, ensuring that the game is running as smoothly as possible. But for some directors within the gaming industry, I don't know if they go as far as to actually sit down and play these games over and over and over again from beginning to end to ensure that the quality is there, that there aren't any huge bugs or glitches, to double check what the pacing is everything flowing right? How are the cutscenes? How is the dialogue? Is the music queuing in properly? Are the boss battles working? Like, that's insane work. Like, and the fact that he's done over 40 of these playthroughs is nuts. But we're talking about 40 plus playthroughs over the course of years at this point, because I think it was last year they were talking about having like a nearly full working build of the game. And they seemingly got that stuff online very quickly. And Hamaguchi, not too long ago was saying like, yeah, I'm playing through the game right now. I have a build that's playable. Most of the stuff is online. Now we're really just working on the polishing stuff. So that makes sense. But again, it's 40 plus playthroughs spread out over the course of the entire development history, is what I would assume. And the thing is, this is what's really interesting, because Hamaguchi mentioned in the previous comicbook.com article that they're getting all of the marketing stuff squared away right now. Has me excited because normally developers don't talk about the thing they're currently working on. They usually talk about stuff that was finished months ago or they've recently finished. So there's a good chance that this game could show up at Summer Game Fest. If the marketing and all of that stuff, got started a while back, figuring out trailers, promotional pieces, what events they're going to be at, even releasing like articles and doing interviews, all of that stuff is meticulously planned out and then structured over the course of like 8 to 10 months. So it's not something that happens overnight, and I'm sure they're probably still ironing out a lot of the details of the marketing and promotion. But the fact that he even mentioned that, it really does lead credence to that we could see it at Summer Game Fest. And again, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, nothing is guaranteed, but that really seems like the most opportune time to really just get the game out there. Rebirth will have just released on, Switch 2 and Xbox. There's hype there. And then you put out some sort of trailer or teaser that gets people excited for what's happening in Part 3. So that's a lot of marketing to plan, 8 to 10 months, but that's not even including marketing stuff that happens after the game launches. A lot of times games are supported for at least a year afterwards to push the game further and to make sure that people know this thing released and to remind people like, hey, this game is still a thing, to keep it in the public eye. So there's a lot that goes into all of that stuff, way above my pay grade, but it's pretty interesting. And I'm curious to see what the marketing campaign is going to be like this time around. Again, I think Remake was marketed really well. Rebirth, not as much. I think they, again, relied a little bit too much on the success of Remake, and I think some of the word of mouth of that game, so they were a lot more lax on Rebirth's marketing. So hopefully Part 3, they'll go all out, have proper marketing, do some crossovers maybe with other games to help promote Remake Part 3 and vice versa. So that should be something really fun to look forward to. Up next, they ask Hamaguchi, you're overseeing an enormously large and ambitious project. Do you have any time for yourself. Hamaguchi says, to be honest, it's rare for me to make downtime with the intentional goal of relaxing. I play games and watch films, but sometimes I'm not even sure whether I'm purely enjoying them or engaging with them as part of my own creative process. As a way of clearing my head, I've made it a habit to get off the train a few stops early and walk for about 30 minutes on the way home. While walking, my thoughts tend to connect in unexpected ways, and I'm able to make sense of things as a result. It's also good for my physical health. I think that's one of the drawbacks of being creative in that type of field, is that maybe sometimes you can't just sit and enjoy things. That creative aspect of your brain is going off of, how did they do this? Why did they do that? What choices led to this? So that's got to be really difficult. That's like almost like his curse. His curse to bear is he's too creative, so he can't enjoy things. But I do like that he puts that he does make an effort to spend at least 30 minutes walking home to just kind of let your brain settle. I think we all kind of need that. Physical activity is great. I work out just about every day. 30 to 40 minutes helps my brain, helps my body. Helps me focus on something that, is, because I'm pretty sure I have ADD or some sort of ADHD. My brain is running a mile a minute. I'm always thinking of stuff, and physical activity is one of the few times where my brain is just focused on one specific thing. And then, maybe I'll have some sort of moment of clarity about something else, but it's very important for everyone's health, but especially for someone like Hamaguchi, who is the project lead on this remake project now. And he's managing a team of hundreds of people. They've got deadlines to meet, the internal goals, again, the marketing. He's also playing the game countless times. So that's insane. So it seems like he's finding different ways to try and, stay as healthy and sane as possible. Again, much like the comicbook.com interview, they asked Hamaguchi to kind of reflect on how this entire project has gone, and he says a few different things here. But he goes on to say, when I look back, the finish line of this project felt unimaginably far away when it first began. But now it feels like time has flown by surprisingly quickly, partly because our days in development were so packed and eventful. For me, FF7 is a truly special title that I've deeply admired, even as a creator. Because of that, I've always carried the belief that this remake series must live up to the expectations of fans who have continued to show their love for 7, and honor the efforts of my fellow creators who have run alongside me up until this point. I, myself, have been involved with this project for over 10 years, but with this final installment, I feel a deep certainty that we'll be able to deliver an experience that'll make people think, I'm glad I stayed with the series until the end. That's something I feel in my heart. For the many fans who have supported us over this long journey, I sincerely hope that the time you've spent following this story to its conclusion will stay with you as something to cherish. My wish from the bottom of my heart is that we deliver a finale that's worthy of that. Time really does fly by. Like I mentioned earlier, man, it's been a long journey, but it doesn't always feel that way. And for them, specifically being in the thick of it, making the game, it's got to be an absolute whirlwind from beginning to end, especially when you lump in the COVID years and how Rebirth was essentially a game developed primarily remotely during COVID. And the fact that that came out on time, worked as good as it did, is incredibly impressive. But I really admire how much respect he has for not just the series of Final Fantasy VII, but for the fans. Again, he himself is a fan. The people working on these games are fans. And I think that's easy to lose track of by some parts of the community who aren't into the remake trilogy. Again, it's fine if you don't like it, but when I see people say stuff like, oh, the developers don't care, or they don't understand the story, or they ruin the legacy of FF7, it's just kind of baffling to me, because everything I've played and experienced with this remake trilogy so far, everything I've seen from people like Hamaguchi, Yoshinori Kitase, Nomura, Toriyama, even the actors on the English side of things, everyone has a reverence for this project. They want to do a good job, and they know their roles inside and out. I mean, you have people like Kitase and Toriyama and Nojima and Nomura who worked on the original FF7, who are a big part of the remake project. I think the people that made the original know what they're doing. They understand the story, and sure, they can lose sight of that. That is incredibly possible. It happened with the compilation of FF7. That thing just kind of got out of control at times, and kind of missed the point of what the story was, didn't really kind of, focus on what the characters were doing. But everything I'm seeing from this remake project seems like they really learned their lessons from that era of Final Fantasy VII. And one of the things I see most from hardcore FF7 fans who like the remake trilogy is that the characters are done right. They understand these characters again. And everything that Hamaguchi has said over the years, I feel like he's delivered on. Personally, I don't think he's ever misled anyone or lied about anything. It's just clear that they all have a very deep respect for what Final Fantasy is, what it was, and what it still represents nearly 30 years later. So again, if you don't like it, that's cool. You're entitled to your opinion, and I think if you can express that in a way that actually is critical and does give valid criticism where the developers can actually learn from it, that's totally cool. That is, something that we do need. But for the people that just constantly crap on the remake project, say they don't like it, they think it's stupid, they say that the people who enjoy it aren't real fans, I don't really understand that mentality, because again, it feels like such a huge waste of time and energy for that person. Why spend so much time and energy on something you don't like or claim that you don't care about anymore? You could be doing way more better things with your time and energy than devoting it to just crapping on something. Life is way too short to do that, in my opinion. So with that being said, that's the video. I am Curious Corduroy. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought about what we covered in today's video. Again, a lot of this info is just kind of drip feeding, but that's all they can really do right now until, we get a proper reveal, which again, we're all looking towards Summer Game Fest 2026 to see if that's where things will be revealed. Maybe there'll be some teases leading into that. We can only hope. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.
Nice work.